I've been a longtime fan of the Assassin's Creed franchise and have played every single game leading up to Assassin's Creed Shadows. Of course, in recent times, the hype and love for the series has gone down drastically, but I was still hopeful for this game. I wanted it to be good, and there seemed to be a lot of promise behind it, with good stealth mechanics, a great setting in feudal Japan. I really wanted to like this game, and when the review embargo dropped for it, it was getting some decent scores from critics. But after putting in like 50 plus hours in being the main story, I can't help but say that I really don't like Assassin's Creed Shadows all that much. Of course, there are some aspects that I think Ubisoft nailed here, and I had a good time with many parts of this game. But as an overall experience, there are a lot of features and design choices that were lacking for me, and it's a really sad situation to be in, because I don't think this game is substantially worse than the past few Assassin's Creed games. I think they improve a lot of things here compared to those titles, and it's simply a better game. But I think overall, I'm just so tired and bored of Ubisoft's formula for video games and just simply don't enjoy them much anymore. Even though this title has good aspects that I'll speak on, it still carries the DNA of a typical Ubisoft open world, and with that breeds a lot of issues that I'll be talking about in this video. But before we do get into things, if you guys do enjoy this video, it would mean a lot if you could like, comment, and subscribe, as we are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. With that being said, let's jump right into it. When Assassin's Creed Shadows was initially announced and we learned that we were finally going to explore feudal Japan, I was extremely excited. This was something that people have been asking for so many years. Unfortunately for Ubisoft, they decided to do this after another very popular game decided to use that setting and made an amazing game out of it. But still, I'm not here to compare the two and say which one did it better, because I feel like there are a lot of differences, and I'm here to talk about Assassin's Creed, not Ghost of Tsushima. And there are multiple angles to look at this setting, from merely just how it looks, and then the actual content in that world. And for Assassin's Creed Shadows, they do one side really well, but not the other. Firstly, this game is just gorgeous, it is beautiful from start to finish, and there are some stunning shots of scenery as you explore. When talking about pure visuals, there aren't many better looking games out there. On top of that, the weather and season system adds so much to the world that I really haven't seen in many other titles. The seasons changing was something that seemed really cool in concept, but I was unsure how it was going to be pulled off. But they did a really good job with it. I never felt like the seasons changed too often, and it actually affected the way I played and go about my stealth. It was such a cool feature, watching the snow slowly melt, leaves fall and change colors. It was something I ended up enjoying a lot. But for as pretty as it was to explore, there was one aspect that was a little bit annoying for me, and that was the ungodly amount of trees and greenery in this game. Because at least for me, whenever I had to go to my next objective, it was honestly just best to put the objective finder on and follow that. Since the second you go off the unbeaten path, it becomes a lot more difficult to explore and traverse around. It ended up being very annoying at times when I would scale down a mountain and only see bamboo and trees in my face and get stuck on them every second. I just feel like it doesn't warrant going off and exploring what's around you, and to me that's something very important to have in an open world game. I should feel like I'm getting rewarded to explore, not punished. But overall, the setting is one of the better parts of this game. It was beautiful to look at, and some of the mechanics were some of the cooler things I've ever seen in a video game. But no matter how pretty your world is, it does not matter, as if the content and time you spend in it is not good, it pushes down the overall experience. And that is what happened here. This is not something I am disappointed by, as to be completely honest, I was expecting this game to not have good side content or be a good open world. That's just how Ubisoft is. I haven't played a good open world from them in quite some time. So going into Assassin's Creed Shadows, my expectations were already in the mud, but at least the open world didn't somehow fail to meet my already low expectations for it. I think some aspects are okay and are better from previous Assassin's Creed games, but as an overall package, it still falls into a lot of the same issues that the other games had. I'll get the good out of the way first, as there isn't much to be honest. The first positive is the fact that there is simply less of this game compared to other Assassin's Creed titles. It is smaller compared to Odyssey and Valhalla and is on a similar scale to Assassin's Creed Origins, which is overall a very welcome decision. I did not want another 100-hour plus game, even though you probably still could put that amount of time into this one. And compared to Valhalla, the side content actually has a lot more purpose and the collectibles are dumbed down extremely, which again, I appreciate a lot. This open world actually ends up having a lot more quests compared to useless collectibles, and there are a lot less strongholds or camps where you have to go and assassinate some leaders and loot a legendary chest. These castles in Assassin's Creed Shadows were a lot more enjoyable to do as they were higher quality and there were less of them, so I didn't get that burnt out. I know it's a little sad to be like, yeah, they gave us less and that's a good thing, but it genuinely isn't this case because there's no need for 150 plus hours of Assassin's Creed Valhalla content. But I still think as a whole, the open world for Shadows falls into the same issues as the other open worlds of Assassin's Creed. And that is, to put it plainly, it isn't enjoyable or good or worth doing. It would be such a lie to say I actively had a good time doing all the side content that this game had to offer. I really only had fun with the castles, which is kinda surprising because I usually don't like them in these games, but I really like the stealth here. Outside of that, we also have a ton of assassination quests, which in theory is a good thing. But they somehow didn't do this one that well either. I didn't hate the assassinations themselves, don't get me wrong, but half the time I would be forgetting why I was assassinating them for. There weren't really any cool storylines with them, and they all just kind of blended together to where I don't remember a single one distinctly. All I know is that I just assassinated a bunch of people. I just wish overall that there was more of a detailed plotline with those assassinations. But besides that, we also have specific questlines for your companions or members of your squad. I'm really not trying to be so negative here, but I really hated these also because I just don't like the people in our squad. Like genuinely, not a single one was interesting or enjoyable. I don't really like any character in this game, but I'll get into that later. Some of the stuff was not bad though. The one I ended up liking a decent bit was the questline for Yasuke where you had to duel Nobutsana's students. I liked that one as it had more of a story with it from the initial backstory of Yasuke and the quest itself. But overall, I just really struggle with enjoying Ubisoft open worlds and their side content, because at least for me, it's not there to actually add to the experience, it's just there to add time and content. I never really feel like my enjoyment of the game increased when I explored and did side activities. It just felt like I had to go around and do it to get better gear and to level up more. And yeah, of course, there's some decent parts to the side content, but they're so few and far between that's not really worth looking for. Overall, I just definitely didn't have the best time with Assassin's Creed Shadows side content. But to get away from the negative, we have probably the most positive section. Well, no, it definitely is the most positive part of this game, and it is the gameplay. This was something that I had a really fun time with from start to finish. The biggest gameplay element that we see throughout all of Assassin's Creed Shadows is the fact that we have dual protagonists. With Yasuke and Naoe, you are able to switch between them and have a completely different playstyle. Yasuke is your more brutish character as he's just an absolute tank, a behemoth. I was mowing enemies down whenever I played as him, it was awesome. But on the flip side, we have Naoe, who is our shinobi. She is very much stealth oriented, not meant to be in one-on-one fights very often as she doesn't really do damage and she takes a lot of damage, so it ends up not being the best pairing. I really ended up enjoying playing as both characters a lot. I naturally played as Naoe more as it was just easier to traverse around with her, but I used Yasuke so much whenever I wanted to just steamroll a castle or things like that. They differ so much in playstyles, you really get the best of both worlds here. And I think overall in terms of the gameplay, they handle the dual protagonists really well. But moving on from that and speaking about Yasuke specifically, I think the hand-to-hand combat with him is honestly really solid. I don't know if I would go as far as saying I love it, but it's good and they fixed a lot of the complaints I had from other Assassin's Creed games. Especially when you play as Yasuke, enemies are not as damage spongy. There were multiple situations where I was like 1 or 2 levels below the enemies and I was still able to take them out comfortably. If I tried doing that in, say, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, it would take me a year to take them out. So I definitely enjoyed that, and I also noticed the difference in each type of weapon you use. We have the long katana, the naginata, the kanabo, the teppo, and the bow. Each one felt distinct and different from the last, and I liked how each one had unique abilities that you could unlock. It was annoying at times how he wasn't really able to traverse or move fast at all, but if he could, it would make playing as Naoe not as valuable, so I get why they did what they did. And speaking on Naoe, playing as her is some of the most fun I've had in Assassin's Creed in a while. One of my biggest complaints ever since Ubisoft decided to move towards the RPG side of things was how the focus on stealth was practically completely removed. I am a big fan of stealth-oriented games, so to see a series that had that element mostly removed was sad to see. But here, the stealth might be the best it's ever been. Maybe I'm just forgetting the older titles a bit, but I really had so much fun here. I think there was a solid range of different ways to take out enemies with the addition of the kunai. And there were a lot of different hiding places within each location, from ponds, grass, bushes, ceilings, and so much more. And the traversal made going from roof to roof work really well with each other. Like, one of my favorite features with the traversal was the hook that you had. I feel like it added so much variety in just traversal and assassinations. And I also think it is awesome how they give the player the possibility to raise or lower the stealth difficulty separate from the combat. And at least for me, I end up having a lot more fun with the stealth when I turned on the instant assassination feature. I played the first 10 or so hours with it off, and I was just getting annoyed when I set up this perfect play to take out some enemy, but my hidden blade simply doesn't do enough damage, and then I'm forced to fight him anyway. So yeah, I definitely liked the stealth more once I turned that on, and was where I had the most fun in the entire game. But fighting with Na Wei in open combat is such a painful experience. It is unbearable to the point where I would just reload the save if I got caught in a fight. Enemies are damage spongy, tanky, they take you out in like one hit, and it is simply not fun at all. But in the early game, it wasn't that bad, and I was honestly having fun with her animations and weapons. But that opinion definitely withered away by the end of the game. It's not really a complaint at all though, because I get it. If she was good in combat, where is Yasuke gonna be useful? Firstly, I think it drives more of an emphasis to be stealthy with her, because once you get into actual combat, it becomes a lot more difficult. And on top of that, they had to design them as being practically useless in the other character's specialty, because then you wouldn't use the other character. And even though they made Na Wei not as good in combat, they still forced you into boss fights with her, and that frustrated me to no other end. Or sometimes I would end up in a mission as her and I would end up having to fight like 10 guards at once, and that was just not happening. I'm more annoyed about the bosses though, because she sucks in one-on-one fights and I'm put into this forced, unavoidable scenario where I have to fight this boss. I didn't like that, it really did annoy me for some reason. Again, it wasn't bad at the start, but enemies just became so much more damage spongy over time. And in general, the boss fights weren't really that good. They were just longer fights. Nothing was really unique about them besides a few rare instances where they were different. But moving on from that, another aspect of the gameplay I want to speak on is the leveling system, the skill tree, and the gear, as I think they all go together. Firstly, the leveling system is fine. I feel like it's never too difficult to level up, especially with the castles and the assassination questlines, which I appreciate because I don't have to spend an annoying amount of time doing that. But with leveling up, we have the skill tree, where we invest our points. The skill tree isn't bad, but I don't think it's good by any metric. What I think makes a good skill tree is when you have to think about what you have to upgrade and how it will improve your playstyle or change it. But here for Assassin's Creed Shadows, that is just not the case. I was just kind of upgrading everything because I felt like each individual ability really didn't change things that much. I want my choices in terms of skills to have more meaning, and it didn't feel like they did here. I feel a similar way with the gear as well, as it was just something that I needed to upgrade. Every time I go up a few levels, I would go around and get completely new gear, and that was that. There wasn't any strategy or thought behind the weapons or armor, I just used what I had. But I will admit, the weapons and gear had such variety with them and they were awesome to look at. The skill tree and gear aren't bad overall, but they were just things that once I realized didn't have much depth, never really gave a thought to again. I would suddenly have 20 skill points and not even realize it at times. Overall though, the gameplay is easily the best part of Assassin's Creed Shadows. Playing as Yasuke and Na Wei is a lot of fun, and each character is enjoyable with what they do well. It worked perfectly throughout my time with this game. Of course, the more nitpicky parts with leveling and stuff like that wasn't interesting to me, but it doesn't negatively affect my time with this game. It just can't be a positive at all. But to move into the last part of this video, and where sadly I have more issues, is the story of Assassin's Creed Shadows. Ubisoft and Assassin's Creed Stories is a combination that has been good twice in the past 11 years. After Black Flag released and had such an amazing narrative, the writing in Assassin's Creed games has been very mediocre. The only good story since then was Assassin's Creed Origins, and even then that definitely had its issues with it. I just never really connect with the protagonist or any of the characters, and the plot is uninteresting with these newer games. So going into Assassin's Creed Shadows, obviously there is that slight hope that it will be solid, but yeah, it wasn't that good. And I don't even think it's necessarily the story itself that is bad. I think there was decent potential with the story, exploring the corruption and betrayal fueled Japan and the inner workings of the daimyo. Like, there was a foundation there that could have been a solid story. But this has been an issue in the past few Assassin's Creed games, and this is the fact that there isn't a structure to the story really at all. We are given these assassinations to do, which obviously makes sense. But then you can pick and choose which ones you do first and second, and each questline doesn't really connect to the next whatsoever. And these assassinations aren't interesting enough to be their own standalone story. I played 90% of this game and not really feeling like anything progressed or changed. I was just assassinating my targets and didn't gain much info from previous enemies or anything of that sort. I felt like nothing happened in the narrative whatsoever. It was really weird. Because at the start of the game, I felt like we had a story there. Naoe's prologue was solid and I really enjoyed Yasuke's initial stuff, but it plays no part at all in the Shinbakufu assassinations. In my opinion, the story with the Shinbakufu is at its best at the beginning of the game. I would say like the first 3 assassinations. But outside of that, we have the personal questlines for Yasuke and Naoe, and those were definitely more interesting, especially Yasuke's. But the assassinations themselves were so lackluster. I only really enjoyed like 1 or 2 of them, the rest of them were relatively boring. They lack substance and that thing to keep a player engaged or interested. I went through those missions feeling nothing at all, no connection to our main characters or the story at hand. And at the end of every assassination, it was so annoying. We would ask them if they knew anything about the box from the start of the game, and practically all of them knew absolutely nothing. So a lot of these assassinations actually don't do anything of use for us at all. I struggled to be engaged with the plot when nothing really happens in it for most of the game. And on top of that, something that I really had an issue with here was the dialogue and voice acting. Like, this stuff was actually just terrible. It's as simple as that. I'll play some of the voice acting now just so you can see.
You took a letter. I'm here to take it back.
You're cute when you're mad. Come and get it.
I ended up switching to the Japanese voice acting instead because it was just so much better in every way. None of the conversations felt real or genuine, and just smaller things like the pacing of sentences, fluctuations in their voice. It was so bad. And I'm someone that normally won't mind voice acting that isn't that good. I can deal with it. But this was just straight up awful. Some characters sounded like AI because the emotion in their voice was just so off or just non-existent. And the dialogue definitely did not help with the voice acting because, again, it didn't feel like I was watching people talk to one another. It felt unnatural and really ruined most of the story for me. But I don't want to spend too much time talking about the things that are bad in the story, so let's talk about the good parts because there are some sections that I really did enjoy. And those sections are the personal journeys that we see Yasuke and Naoe go on, especially with Yasuke. In Assassin's Creed Shadows, we have separate questlines for our protagonists where we learn more about their backstory. And in these questlines, we learn more about the Templars and Assassins of that time. Yasuke, we explore the Templars, and Naoe, the Assassins. I liked learning about them, but I just wish they played more of a role in the main plot of this game instead of just being for their personal quests. Naoe's is the one I enjoyed less overall because it boiled down to mostly just uncovering clues about the Assassins and things about her mother. But still, at the end of her questline, it sets up a lot of interesting things that could be explored. And with Yasuke, we learn a lot about the Templars and his history with them. Just the whole backstory of Yasuke in general is my favorite part of this entire game, and I wish we got more of it. Watching his initial training to become a samurai and seeing his interactions with the Templars, it ended up being a lot more of an engaging story.
My name is Yasuke.
And with both their questlines ending, I think it definitely sets up some DLCs for them, which is exciting. But I'm also not trying to spend money on that, so we'll see if I play them if they ever actually happen. These sections of the narrative were definitely the highlights though, as Naoe's and Yasuke's backstories were solid and I ended up being more engaged and invested in those sections of the game. And lastly, one other good aspect I found with the narrative is how grounded they kept it. With Odyssey and Valhalla, mythology was a heavy influence with its narrative and it took away from the core of the series. Of course, Assassin's Creed was nowhere close to a fully grounded narrative as they had Pieces of Eden, but they took it overboard in the recent games. But here I appreciate them keeping it more grounded. Like there's genuinely no supernatural thing going on within the story at all. Of course, the box I assume has some type of Piece of Eden in it, but we never actually see it. The narrative removed the mythology, which overall I was just very happy about. But to tie together the entirety of the narrative from Assassin's Creed Shadows, it simply isn't that good. There is a lot lacking, especially since the main chunk of the story with the Shinbakufu assassinations were not interesting and concluded very abruptly and anticlimactically. I always struggle when they structure the stories the way they do because they have the big bad guy be some unknown person and then it ends up being someone we barely ever interacted with. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'll just go and take them out as well. But in this game, you don't even get to do that, you're just forced to spare him. It feels like any other assassination in the game. It doesn't feel like such a big climax of taking out the leader of this order. Assassin's Creed always does struggle with their villains though. Like looking at Assassin's Creed Valhalla for a second. Even though I don't like that game either, the villain had a lot more of a connection to us as a character and felt more surprising. I want that from a villain. I want there to be more of a connection between them and ourselves. But yeah, I really just don't like the way they structure their stories whatsoever, and for the most part, I really just didn't connect with a single character. I don't mind Naoe, and I enjoy Yasuke most of the time, and their personal missions were the highlight of this narrative. But everyone else just sucks, and I did not find them interesting. I really hope soon that Ubisoft can make narratives that I'm engaged and interested with, because 90% of my time with the story of Assassin's Creed Shadows, I did not care about it. Assassin's Creed is a franchise that I have for the most part always loved. It holds a special place in my heart. These were the games that got me into single players, so for that I will always appreciate them. But as time goes on, I notice the decline of this once legendary IP. These titles now simply don't do anything for me. I play them and don't have that great of a time with it. There's enough here to redeem it to the point where I think this game is solid, but there is way too much missing for me to claim it as good. I really wanted to love this game, at least like it, but in the end, it just did not live up to what I wanted to see out of it. Now, if you enjoy this game, I am so happy that you do and you should continue to enjoy it. But at least for me, this is just another nail in the coffin of a series that has already died in my eyes. I miss the story the older games had, and that is just not here now. Overall, Assassin's Creed Shadows is an okay game. The gameplay is honestly fun for the most part, the world is beautiful, and has some really solid story beats. But the open world is boring and repetitive, the narrative as a whole is thrown together and doesn't really connect with each other, and it simply wasn't fun to play. My final rating of Assassin's Creed Shadows is a 6 out of 10. I wanted a lot more from this game, but unfortunately didn't get it. If you guys made it to the end of this video, thank you guys so much for watching. Your support means the absolute world to me. If you guys did enjoy it, it would mean a lot if you could like, comment, and subscribe as we are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. Again, thank you guys so much for your support. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. I will see you guys in the next one, and God bless.